Hello, you guys. Welcome back to the Cooper Vogetti podcast, Vogetti Studios. The tables have turned today.
How the turntables have turned.
So today is Cooper's 30th birthday. So I had the idea of asking Cooper 30 questions for his 30th birthday. So I came up with some that we're just I'm gonna interview Cooper today, okay?
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
Yeah. I've never really interviewed anyone, in my opinion.
I know, yeah, it's really just having conversations. But I feel like, you know, Cooper's always talking to other people about their things, and I kind of wanted to, reflect on some past things with him and life and just some things. So, okay, by the way, you know, I'm a mom, so I'm a little all over the place. So we got 24 questions. So
Wow.
I'm going to have to think of 6 as we go.
I feel younger.
But also, some have, kind of 2 parts to it. So I feel like it'll, add up to 30, you know?
Yeah, close enough.
All right, well, just first to start off, how are you feeling today? It's your birthday. You're 30. How are you feeling being 30?
I don't like my birthdays. I really don't. It's just I would prefer just to skip that day in general. I don't need to feel special or I don't want any extra attention.
I know.
It actually annoys me when people do things for me.
I did.
So
Did I annoy you this morning setting up?
It subconsciously frustrates me because I don't want anything done.
I set up a decoration thing with 30 balloons and happy birthday in our kitchen. Just I wanted to do that to make you feel special.
Yeah, I don't do good with that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean,
sorry. Thank you for doing it, but
yeah.
I think you did it for yourself.
No, I didn't.
I mean, I think you did it for yourself because I don't like it.
I mean, doing that made me happy to I guess, yeah. Literally, I asked Cooper so many times, what do you want to do for your birthday? What do you want to do? Still today, I'm like, what do you want to do
What else do
today?
I not like, though? When somebody asks me the same thing multiple times.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right, well, let's go back a little bit. So you grew up in a small town called Montauk on Long Island.
Yeah.
How do you feel like growing up in a small town like Montauk shaped you to be who you are today? Do you think there's anything from growing up there that you've taken with you or that, has kind of shaped you into who you are today?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I would say, a lot. I would say one of the main things about the small town was my lack of experience of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I never really, we'd experienced McDonald's or the mall, but it was very, very rare.
Not even the mall though. The mall was so far.
But like I said, I've experienced it. But
yeah.
It was very rare.
Yeah.
I've been to a mall, but it was a twice a year thing.
Yeah.
Even going to a big box store like Kmart, the last one I think is just about to close, was 45 minutes from us.
Right.
And now it's the biggest box store that we would go to.
So you feel like you almost got to enjoy those experiences more as we got older because you didn't get to experience them, or
I don't know if enjoy is the right word. I just didn't really experience them, so it was kind of foreign a little bit, but not really. I wouldn't say I was at a place. It just felt
But how
odd.
do you think it shaped you to who you are today?
I think it kind of definitely showed the community size and how small a community can be and still fully functioning.
Yeah.
Because it was a very small town of everybody did the same, everybody did their job in that town.
Well, that's also kind of a good point of community, because you're still a very community, you want to help people and you want to help your neighbors, do whatever you can for the community. And maybe growing up in a small town because everyone knew each other, helped each other, maybe that's kind of where you've just grown up in that way of
there was also this weird
community
underlying feel of everybody knew each other, but nobody liked each other.
Yeah, true. Definitely a lot of
everybody felt like they didn't like the other person.
Yeah.
But it also showed the small business owner, because every business my whole life was owned by a person that lived in the town.
That's a perfect segue. I was going to say, my next question is, your family has always had small businesses. What was your first job, and how do you feel like it was working with family? Talk about your first job. I mean, I know what it is, but maybe they don't know.
My first job was interesting. I would say it definitely didn't prepare me as much for real employment, I would say, because I worked at a small business that was only opened 4 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And it didn't have like, leadership roles or like management positions.
relaxed,
It was
like-
just kind of like a free for all. Like
Yeah.
the time cards were like stamp it in or write in. Like it
Yeah.
was very like,
Oh, I had just like a little card that I would like check off my hours every day sort of thing.
and that's definitely an odd situation.
Wait, but actually I don't even know. Was your first job roofing or working at the toy store?
I was working at a toy store first.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was like a toy store / beach store / like
Yeah, well,
gift
so-
shop.
So Cooper's grandparents owned a toy store and a t-shirt store in Montauk, and then Cooper's mom owned a boutique, and then Cooper's dad did roofing. So
Yes.
literally all small businesses
Yep, my dad had
in this town.
a 2-person crew.
Yeah. So you were doing,
My grandpa had a hot dog wagon on the beach.
oh yeah, and that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it was my other grandpa had a hot dog wagon on the beach.
Yes.
So it was just a mix of small businesses, and all of
Yeah.
them were ran by my grandparents or my parents. Like it
Yeah.
was like 90% of the staff was them.
Yeah, I know.
Like that's
working.
that
They
kind of
had-
small business.
Yeah, like they're at the store working every day. I mean, still to this day, your mom works
Yeah.
at the store. Like
They're
you're-
really like it's almost, as I've gotten older, I realized that it's not even a small business. It's just self-employed.
Yeah.
Like
So
you know what I
true.
mean? Like you're hardly even like a business. You're really just like your own job.
Yeah.
You just own your own job.
Yeah. Well, how do you feel like it was working with family?
It was tough and it was crazy. And again, like that's where I kind of say like it wasn't a real business or job as much as it was a real business. It was like this, people would just show up, and if somebody needed it, it's like, oh, the cousin's filling in for 4 hours.
Right. Yeah.
Like, no
Yeah.
name tags, no uniforms.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'd help people. Like I sold a lot of beach chairs at the time, so like
And firewood, or you'd always sell
firewood.
firewood for like beach fires. Yeah.
yeah, and that was interesting. There was no extra commission, but I did like selling beach chairs.
Mm-hmm.
I like trying to like persuade people to
To
buy
get the
more.
nicer chair, like
Yeah, so
One
that
with
was
the
always kind of
shade.
fun. Yeah, because you could upsell. There was like a $30 chair or like a $180 chair, so it was
Yeah.
kind of fun to try to upsell, and then you
Yeah.
load it in their car for them, and
Yeah.
you'd see it in the trash can in like 5 days because they're only there for 5 days and they're from the city.
Yeah,
so
they
it's
would
like,
spend like $100 on a beach chair, and it was just for like 2 days.
Yeah,
like,
'cause what do you
wealthy
do?
People going out to the Hamptons. yeah.
exactly. So it was
Yeah.
interesting. It was fun, and it was it was a small store. It's just like they
Yeah.
sold whatever people would buy with
I mean,
candy.
what, like
like
the little things in the
there
toy
was a prank
store.
aisle. There was an aisle of like mugs that
Wait.
said MTK.
Just before, the toy store was called A Little Bit of Everything, and this toy store literally had everything, like candy, toys, like just a little bit of everything. But like all the little things, what were those? Like 50 cents?
Yeah, there was plenty
Right?
of
Like,
things that were like 50 to 25 cents.
Yeah, like that's like crazy to think about. It's
Yeah, I
like
mean, you
none
could
of that
get like
anymore.
a bouncy ball for 25 cents.
Yeah,
Like, and it wasn't in like a put a quarter in type of
yeah,
thing.
no, it was just a box full of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you were younger, you started getting into Tahoes.
I did like Tahoes.
You've always liked Tahoes. Why a Tahoe? And do you remember how much that first one was that you got?
Yeah.
That black one?
Yeah, I can describe it pretty well.
Yes. But why a Tahoe? What's the lure with a Tahoe for you?
Well,
It was Cooper's first car, by the way.
well,
Did I say
in
that?
in Montauk, East Hampton area, people don't like aspire to own like a car
Mm-hmm.
from my at the time, and probably still currently, like the aspiration was like you aspired to own like the truck of the time.
Oh yeah, like lifted trucks and stuff was what
Exactly.
people wanted, yeah.
And
That's still a lure for sure.
exactly, but that was my upbringing. It was like I didn't care about the new Mustang really. I cared about the new F-250
Right.
that just came out, because that to me, and we were in that transitional time, like 2000. When did I get a license? Probably 2012, 2013-ish. I was like ready to buy a car, where so like Fords and Chevys and like the trucks started to switch from like a work truck to more like comfort performance oriented. I felt so they were all like nice fit and finish. You get like these baller bougie trucks. SEMA was starting to become like big lifted trucks. There was lifted truck magazines all over. So it felt like that was the avenue. And being in a place where you're in winter half the year, it felt good. It felt smart to get a truck, not like a car. So my immediate thought was, okay, like a truck, but I didn't really need a truck. I always liked Tahoes, and I felt that was like the same but different.
Yeah.
It just felt like a cooler avenue for me because everybody wanted a truck. I was like, oh, let me get like an SUV.
I could not see you in a truck back then, which is funny because I love you in your truck now. But like, I just didn't feel like you were a truck guy back then.
Yeah, I just didn't really.
The Tahoe just suited you.
Yeah, I didn't really care for a truck at the time. I wanted the 4-wheel drive. I wanted the bigger vehicle.
Yeah.
But I didn't care for a truck.
Right.
And as much as I liked trucks and I liked the diesels and that kind of stuff, my thought was, okay, I get the same V8, get the same transmission, I get a bit nicer interior.
And you get a third row.
Yeah, and you get a third row.
Right, I'm pretty sure that first Tahoe had a third row.
Yeah, so the first car I ever got.
And a TV.
Yeah, it had a little DVD player.
Yeah.
The first car I ever got was, I missed this thing because it was a really nice vehicle. I still think that it has the best interior of that like 2000s generation Tahoe, even compared to the later ones. So it was a 2004 Z71, and it was like the top model black Z71 Tahoe with the nice aluminum wheels or whatever they were. They were
I have no idea.
yeah.
Don't ask
I'm trying
me.
to think. They were the aluminum alloy wheels. It was really nice. Like this thing was great condition. It was high mileage, but it was a really
Do you remember
really
how much
good
it was?
vehicle. I think I paid $16,000 for it.
Okay.
And that was after, I saved for that car for like 4 or 5 years of summers working. Like
6 days a week.
5 months
all
out of the
day.
year, 6 days a week, just like hustle
10
a
to
lot
10.
to try to get, money for a vehicle.
Yeah.
And then I had that car for 4 months.
Yeah, I don't know if we've ever told this story on the podcast, but Cooper had that car and it was
Great. I loved that car.
It was a great car. We did dates in that car. we would go and drive around and we'd sit in the back row and watch a TV at the beach. Like, it was fun and cute. But we were driving one day back to my house, actually, and there were like these windy roads and it was winter and
Like 17 or 18 at the time.
yeah, we were driving and hit black ice, went skirt, hit a tree, went the other way, and then the car flipped on its side. And
It was instant.
And like Cooper was on the ground and I was like above him, and we climbed out of the sunroof and we didn't have a scratch.
Yeah, we didn't get hurt at all. The car on its
Isn't that
side
crazy to
knocked
think
over
about?
a bunch of trees. It was like,
And it was
I think
the
they
car
had-
was totaled. That was it.
well, they had
Like,
to drag it out on its side.
Yeah, I felt so bad, like that car.
Yeah, it was definitely sad.
Yeah.
That was definitely rough. And then,
Yeah.
what was I going to say? The car was totaled, but, insurance paid out some money. I think that day was weird because they let us out of school early because it was just starting to flurry and it was getting really cold. And we were driving on these back roads and we, hit a spot where the trees were covering the road, which if there's no sunlight on the
That's
road,
where black ice
that's where the black
happens,
ice is
right.
going to be. And then
And literally this,
was a windy
I
road.
know this turn. It's like, it literally goes down and then like a sharp turn and back up. And like when we hit that sharp turn, it just skirted and then hit the tree.
it was
boom.
instant. It was
Yeah.
like,
I don't even like remember it really because it was so quick. I just remember like stopping and we were both on our sides and like you just were like, we got to get out the sunroof.
yeah.
Thank God you had the sunroof. Like,
Yeah, it would have been heavy to open a door.
Yeah.
It would have been
was-
very heavy to open one of those doors. But yeah, I
It
mean,
was
we got
scary,
out
but
and
we're here today.
We were fine. Unfortunately, that car, it just wasn't the right car at the time, I guess, because the universe seemed to have different plans.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I obviously had no more crisp 2004 Tahoe. That thing was very good car. I would
Yeah, I like
drive
that
that car
car.
to this day right now if
Yeah.
I came across like a nice 2004 Z71 like that.
You'd be like, I want that.
Oh, I would daily drive that car in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I would probably have.
It was a really nice car.
It's interesting because I probably would have been more reluctant to get rid of it. So then after that, we ended up buying a
got a
99,
Cadillac, right?
99 Escalade.
I forgot about that.
It was super clapped out. Like insanely clapped out, this 99 Escalade.
about
It was
car.
gold. It was, I think we bought it for like $2,000.
Yeah.
And it ran really well though.
Yeah, it did.
Like I drove that car for
Oh my God, I'm having
quite a few years
flashbacks.
after that. But
Yeah.
it's interesting to think. I had this really nice car, I worked really hard for,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was almost immediately I threw it away, and I ended up in like this shit box for quite a few years.
Mm-hmm.
But that may have been the right thing. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like
are you trying to say like almost like the universe was telling you like you shouldn't have like
I wasn't
got
ready
that
for a nice baller
yeah,
car
that nice
yet.
of a car. Like you should have just saved your money, gotten something
Yep.
cheaper, and then like yeah. But you worked really hard for that. But I
Doesn't
could
matter.
see that. My other question that has to do with that Tahoe, was there any like modifications that you did on it? I feel like I remember you like lifted it, the
No.
Tahoe. No?
No, I was not really like
I thought you did
adapt to
something
do
it.
anything at that time. I mean,
Really?
I had aspirations to do things, but the way that my pocketbook was set up at the time, I had like things for it too. Like I had like a big front grill for it that was like a big bash bar.
Yeah.
It
see,
just
I'm
never
like-
went on.
I knew there was
It
something.
was sitting in my parents' basement because like
It's maybe still there.
yeah,
or was
because
there.
nobody in my family knows how to work on cars.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like, okay, well, I hope to eventually do this. Hope to find somebody that'll help me. Nothing ever
Never
happened.
got to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same with the Escalade. I never modified that either. Because
Well, why would you? It was, it was
the
a
shit
shit
box.
box.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was kind of Montauk life. Now take us to Florida. Where did you go to college and what did you study?
So I came down to Florida for school. I went to a trade school, and that trade school is no longer around, which is fun. So I basically have a defunct degree in engineering.
You did electrical engineering,
Yeah,
right?
I did
Yeah.
fixed 5-volt electrical engineering and like some computer programming on the side. I went for that, and I got my, associate's degree in electrical engineering, and it just kind of felt like I didn't need to go any farther.
Yeah, well, so then, because you quickly, like, graduated, because you did it was 3 years, right, to get your associates, I think?
Yeah.
And then that was, like, at the time when you were starting to, like, get into doing, like, the drag racing
It took
stuff?
3 years because I dragged out the last year, which I
So
don't remember
what-
what happened with that.
These are I'll, like, kind of combine these into two because we're going into that. My two questions were, what was your first moment you can remember where you started to gain an interest in drag racing? Like, what was that moment that it was like, oh, this is something that is out there and, like, cool and I want to get involved in it? And then what was your first job in the drag racing community? Because after you graduated, you were starting to do stuff with Garrett and 1320, right?
Yeah, well, before I
how did you
graduated, I
even-
was already doing that.
But how did you even, like, gain an interest in that? Like, do you remember were you watching 1320 on YouTube? I don't even know. I don't know
No,
this.
how it kind of worked was I had an interest in social media, and like I had like an interest in cars, but it was still very truck interested, and it was starting to get stronger because when you're in Florida, there's a lot more cars and a lot more car things going on. I had an interest in cars. I didn't have I still had that Escalade when I lived here, so it was like I didn't really have anything I could go to like a car meet with.
Right.
So it kind of limits you on like what you can really branch out and meet people with. But Garrett had his Subaru at the time, and we became friends. And
how'd you guys become roommates?
yeah, we had a mutual friend.
Right.
And then we knew each other through a mutual friend.
Well, Cooper's roommates were friends with him.
Yeah,
and
like a
Garrett
mutual
weren't
friend.
roommates. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I just said roommates. So
I know.
Clarifying.
And then we ended up talking social media. He was already working with Kyle at 1320 Video. He was doing like base level social media with Kyle. He was just kind of handling the Instagram, but that was pretty early on. I would say 2015. Instagram still wasn't really
a thing yet.
much yet. It still didn't even have like videos. It was still one by one posts only.
Oh yeah.
Things had like filters. So Instagram was kind of like nothing. It was like it had like under 100,000 followers. It was just like nothingness basically. It was just Kyle thought like, oh, I don't know, like might as well have somebody do it.
Yeah.
So Garrett was just doing it for free. And then it started to pick up steam, so he offered Garrett the opportunity to
do the Facebook
take over the
right?
Facebook and basically become like manager of social media. And at that time, it was starting to pick up steam more, just social media in general. I mean, maybe I'm a little naive, but I felt that was when it was starting to pick up steam. Some people may say, oh, 2013, I was already doing it, but like, it felt like that's when it was really taking off. So Garrett, the shrewd businessman he is, immediately delegated some of his job to me to post on social media. And that to me was very helpful because I got to dive deep into cars. Like I had to at that point. I had to really learn what was going on.
Yeah.
I made a ton of mistakes on cars, like what cars were what, like on posts. You know, there was accidents all the time on that kind of stuff because I was young and stupid.
Yeah, I feel like I remember that. Like you would write something and like you'd have to go back and like frantically fix it.
Well, like
or
if it was about
something.
like if I was wrong about the car or
Yeah.
like just things like that. But that kind of forced the learning.
Right.
It was faceless, so people didn't know I was screwing up, you know, because that's half of people's fear, I would think, on social media is being forward facing. And I just had to learn what got clicks and went viral. It was just sink or swim.
Yeah.
And thankfully, we were able to push that page in like maybe 2 years of like Instagram ramping up. We were able to push it from like 100,000 to 1 million followers.
That's
from
crazy.
just kind of like, I would say part-time screwing around on it. And this was before you could go viral on like Instagram. There wasn't a For You really thing. Like you had to like, I don't even think there was stories for the longest time.
Yeah, I don't even
It was
know how
very
you would
different.
like grow on Instagram. Yeah, I think it was the For You page. I think.
Yeah, it was very different.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we grew on Instagram. Facebook was growing. Kyle was happy with how that was working. We still weren't going to events though. Like we weren't going with 1320 to film at these events for the most part. They were just sending us content and we would have to weed through it and figure out what works. So
that
somebody
was
could
like
send
your
you
first job in the drag racing car world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I didn't even feel like we were in the drag racing world at that point because even that time of Kyle Loftus and 1320, they were filming a lot more on the street. They were filming a lot more like streetcar stuff, a lot more just like that, it felt like. So it didn't even feel like drag racing. We didn't really go to the drag strip that often. We went to a couple TX2Ks. We started to try to follow Streetcar Takeover around a little more before we had like a car. We went to like LS Fest and stuff like that, trying to like branch out and I guess just have fun. So that was kind of.
And then when Garrett started like the Cletus channel, you were just like alongside there with that, right?
Yeah, well,
Or what was that like split? Do you remember that? Like when you guys were with 1320 and then started to like do your own thing. Do you remember that?
the split didn't happen till like after 100,000 subscribers on
On
the
YouTube?
Cletus channel.
Okay.
So, Garrett was filming some Cletus videos with Kyle. He would travel more,
Yeah, yeah.
and I wouldn't travel as much because, it was a small company, 1320. They couldn't afford to have 2 media guys there.
yeah.
And Kyle
This
would...
is so crazy. Like, I feel like I don't even remember this. It feels so long ago.
Yeah,
Like,
so
it's
Garrett
not-
would travel more with them, and Kyle would film videos with him and all this stuff. And then at one point, Garrett's like, I think even with Kyle's like guidance, Garrett decided, oh, we should film our own videos on our own channel instead of just relying on the hope that we make something that Kyle shares.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know YouTube at the time. I knew like Street Speed 717 was like one of the few YouTubers that was actually like doing it for a living. And I knew that he had like a C7 and a bunch of cool cars. So I was like, oh, well, there's clearly money there.
Something there, yeah.
And he would talk about how he was making money on YouTube as like a solo creator kind of thing. So I was like, oh, there's clearly money there.
Like, we can do this sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah. And then we kind of started filming some videos. They were very random at the time. They were
Yeah.
very sporadic. They would be
But it
weeks without a
almost
video, it felt like.
Seemed like at that time was where, like, you had a chance to, like, go viral on YouTube.
You could. And we went viral on Facebook quite a few times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we did like the mannequin challenge thing that went very viral.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was many a
With
times
all the
where
roommates.
yeah. There was many a times where we did well on
That's
Facebook
so
viral
funny.
content.
Yeah, that's so funny. It's like Facebook viral content was like how TikTok viral content is now. Like,
Yeah.
like how you can easily go viral. Okay, well, so then you and Garrett were obviously doing that stuff. And your first like performance car that you got was the CTSV, right?
Yes.
Why
right
did
behind you.
Why did you choose that car? You've always had, I guess, an interest in Cadillacs, too, because the Escalade that you had, the shipbox back then. But then, like, why, once you were like, oh, I want to, like, get into drag racing and do something, like, why the CTSV?
It kind of just ticked all the boxes for me because I needed something that was like a daily driver.
Yeah.
I wanted something that was like,
Oh, my God, you learned how to drive stick shift on that car.
yeah. Yeah, I learned how to.
Guys, hold on. I remember I would panic driving with you in this car around Tampa because, no offense, you weren't that good yet.
I mean, I'm sure at some
And
point I
there's-
was good.
You know the Chipotle parking lot where like the hill would go up? I would literally get so much anxiety. Like, and there was definitely a few times you stalled when we're like driving down Soho. Oh my God.
I've definitely stalled it quite a few times. I learned how to drive stick in it.
You
so
did.
I had to learn all the things that one would learn
Yeah.
with driving stick shift. I had to learn.
But that's just so funny thinking back.
Yeah.
Okay, so why that car? Sorry.
It just ticked all the boxes. So I wanted something with a V8. I wanted something stick shift. I wanted something I could daily drive. I did want something like more luxurious. I wasn't a Corvette guy, so I didn't want to get like a 2-door vehicle because this was going to be my only car.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can't really get like a Corvette because I need to carry things at some point. And thankfully, I did get that car because I've had to move. I moved with that car. Like I had to use it for like multiple trips, places. And it felt like it just ticked all the boxes. Like it was really nice. It was fairly reasonably priced. I think it was like 13 grand I paid for it, something like that. It wasn't crazy. And that car was insanely reliable for me.
Yeah,
I
it
drove it
was.
for years with just doing general maintenance and enjoying it. And it was
enjoyable. Like it was a fun little car that we drove around and
yeah,
stuff. And
it was
nice
fast.
and,
It would
yeah.
it was eye catching. Like
Yeah, it looked
was
nice.
relatively fast. I mean, it probably made like 380 horsepower, but it was relatively fast. I enjoyed it a lot. I really, to this day, that's still one of those cars that I would, if I had like a bone stock one, I would daily drive it in a
Yeah.
heartbeat.
Yeah.
I wouldn't lower it though. I would like maybe just a
And
little
didn't you
lower.
put like a I don't want to use the word muffler. Or was it a muffler?
Well, I did. I changed the exhaust like 4 different times on it, but that
I
was
remember it was really
again-
loud at one point too.
Yeah. So again, early in performance and professional career, I had no money.
Yeah.
So what can you do to a vehicle when you have no money is muffler shops are fairly cheap to change things up. Like straight pipe, you do like a different kind of like cherry bomb almost style. I didn't do cherry bombs, but it was like that style. Then it had like really badass exhaust at one point. You know, I couldn't afford new wheels. I couldn't afford
So that
like
was your one thing.
putting
you
a
did
cam
to
in it or tunes and like all this stuff was like kind of unaffordable at the time.
Right.
So
You did what you could.
yeah, you do cheap things to make yourself feel like you're a hot rodder.
Yeah. And then I guess going off of that, it's kind of a current question because I feel like people ask a lot, do you plan to do something with that car someday?
I mean, you know, plans are useless, but planning is essential, right? So,
Well, I guess like if the time came around where you wanted to start a new project, like would you do something with that? Or would something else come first?
I don't know. I mean, it's so hard to know because my life has changed. My goals have changed because, like, as much as I love that car and would love to drag race that car, it just wouldn't fit anywhere in what I want to do. Like, I want the fastest car possible. And starting with something like that is just, you're already starting on a bad foot. And that's my struggle that I always hit is like, if you want the fastest car possible, you start with something light, something that is readily available, something like a Fox body, a 4th gen Camaro, something like that to go faster.
Yeah.
And that's my frustration with that car.
Because it's heavy, right? Is that what you're
It's heavy.
Yeah.
It's like a big car. It's got 4 doors. Like, it's always going to be heavier. It's got a sunroof. Like, it's got all of these things that you would have to do
It'd be nice to like
make
fix
it light.
it someday to be like a little drive around car again. You know?
Yeah. And that would be
Like
kind of
CJ's
the other.
first car. Or something.
That would kind of be the potential other option is like
Yeah.
just make it a street car.
Right.
But again, what do I need a street car for?
Right. I know. It's like you have the wagon and we never use that.
That's what I mean. Like I don't.
All right. Well, we got to speed up a little bit because we have someone. My mom's watching CJ, and I still have a lot more questions.
Wow. I
We're
ramble.
only on 10.
I ramble. Well, you said you only had 25.
Yeah, but we're only halfway there. Okay. Now let's get into the Camaro.
Okay.
Why the 2JZ?
I mean, I guess you gotta like initially go back to why the Camaro.
Okay, so both.
So when we moved
two
into
questions.
so when we moved into the house, we had a big shop and I was burnt out working on the CTSV. It was annoying. It was frustrating. I didn't want to put a bunch of money into it, but I did have more money at that time. I was making more money, so I was like, well, I want to do something. I have an engine. I have this supercharger. I got all these parts, but I was just done. Mentally, I was...
originally you were going to put that engine in the Camaro? That's what you're saying with the supercharger and stuff?
Well, that engine was... The engine from the CTSV was in the Camaro.
At first?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember.
Like, I made
that.
passes with that.
Okay.
So I was burnt out working on the CTSV, so I was like, well, let me just, like, get a new project to try to, like, liven myself back up.
Yeah.
Got the Camaro, and I started diving into that. I knew it was a better platform, and it was new platform, so I stripped it all down. I cleaned it all up. I put a whole new suspension in it. I put an LS in it. I wired it. I did everything on this car. It didn't leave this shop. It pulled into this shop as a running, driving V6, and when it pulled out of this shop, it was a running, driving V8. And, like, that was the first car where I really did everything on.
Yeah.
And
which is cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
Think about. Yeah.
And I drove it to the track. It went 9s, and I drove it home. You know?
You didn't have a trailer yet, right?
No.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah, so I didn't have a trailer. I just drove it there and drove it home. And I did end up getting the trailer when it was still V8. But then it started to run into some weird issues that we just couldn't figure out. It was just like stupid things like, I don't know, some stupid tuning stuff and all kinds of dumb things that I was just like, I looked at it and I was like, okay, well, it's got a 5.7 aluminum block LS6 from a CTSV. It's not going to do anything groundbreaking. I had already had the 2JZ built. It was sitting at Induction Performance, and it was sitting there collecting dust. It sat there for like...
What were you going to do with that originally?
It was supposed to be that white Supra.
Oh, yeah.
Which the goal in that white Supra was build the perfect street car. Mm-hmm. But then again, I was like, why do I want a 1,000 horsepower Supra street car? Mm-hmm. Plenty of people probably enjoy having that. I felt no, like... yearning to get like 1,000 horsepower street Supra. It was just like, okay, what am I going to do with it then? Mm-hmm. So the Camaro had a cage. It had a bunch of suspension. It had like all of this good parts where it felt so dumb to own 1,000 plus horsepower engine and not put it in that car. So I was just like, okay, Victor, how about we do this? And he was like, I mean, I guess. And we went down the rabbit hole. First, it was like, can we do this?
I know. When you just said the rabbit hole, I feel like I remember like kind of like trying to figure out like, is this even gonna work? Like, was there something with like the engine fitting in there?
Well, yeah, we didn't know if it was gonna fit. There was nobody else that had one that fit.
I kind of remember that where it was like, like you said, is this even gonna work?
Yeah. So we were just kind of like, is this going to work? And we did some measurements, and it seemed like it was going to fit. So I brought it up to my buddy Jonathan, who was actually our shop neighbors in Clearwater when we were up there. Mm-hmm. So I was still working with Garrett at the time. Mm-hmm. It was shop neighbors, so he put the engine in and welded it all in, motor plates, and then made the hot side and cold side. We did do a bigger turbo because we were going to do like a 68 millimeter turbo on the Supra, and then we did an 86 millimeter turbo when it was on the Camaro. So we changed it there. We went far bigger. It was supposed to make like 1,000 horsepower, and I told Victor and Alpha at the time, I was like, if it runs 8s, I'll be happy. Mm-hmm. We brought it to FL2K 2020. I think it was 2020.
Was it the first time you raced it, right?
Yeah. First qualifier of FL2K, it goes 840. No parachute, factory front brakes.
Oh my gosh.
I think, yeah, I mean, it was my first pass in the car, 840 right off the trailer, which was crazy because I wanted a 8-second car. Like, I was hopeful for an 8-second car.
Yeah, you were like, oh, well, I want to get there, but it's probably going to be a while. Like, and it was just there.
I kind of knew it was going to be faster than that. You know, you kind of hope, but also you say, like, And I talked to Jay when he was at Jay Meager of Real Street at the time, and we were looking at the car together, and I was like, oh, I hope to go 8s. He goes, what are you talking about? Like, this thing should go 7s very easily.
Really?
I was like, yeah, I guess.
You're like, we'll see. Maybe.
Yeah, I was like, hopefully. I mean, that'd be cool.
Well, that's a cool little throwback story on all the Camaro stuff, thinking back about that. And I mean, how far you've come now is crazy with that car. Like, and I mean, not to like boost your ego a little bit, but I feel like the 2JZ Camaro has been like a cool thing. Like a 2JZ and a Camaro, and like, it's definitely turned heads and it's done well, and like you've done well racing it, and like
and it's an awesome engine. So like people hear the 2J doing a burnout or something, and
I do love the sound of it.
Yeah, it just sounds good. It sounds cool. Like it's got like this cool factor to the engine, and like that's not even a boost of me. That's just like the engine is cool. Like hearing a 2J get on the two-step is cool.
Yeah, but I think your idea of putting like the 2JZ in the Camaro is cool and different, and like I also love that the Camaro is just like. I love you, Camaro, but like a little junk box kind of, you know?
She's definitely rough.
Yeah, like she's rough around the edges, but like she's a great car and she does well. And it's
a good hot rod.
Yeah, it's a cool little thing you got going on with that car. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
With that. Okay, we're going to get into some deeper questions. Well, first, if you could put together any setup for a race car, like anything, what would you do? Like, money wasn't a question.
I mean, it'd be hard not to, like, I think anybody answering that question would be fairly dumb not to say, oh, I would kind of follow Brett LaSala's footsteps.
Okay. Where is it?
Yeah. But like,
Do you do that in other podcasts? You do.
No, but it would just be like, you'd be foolish to say like,
So you do a Coyote engine.
I'd probably do a Coyote engine in an S197, similar kind of deal, fast forward race engines. Like, you'd be silly not to if like money wasn't an option, if you could get any parts you want, work with any people you want.
Yeah.
It'd just be foolish
That's
because
what you
that
would
combo
go for.
works so well. Like
Yeah.
Jim's car, Brett's
they
car,
do
like they
kill it.
work really well. So
Yeah.
it's, yes, you can maybe, I don't know, maybe like a Fox body with a big block in it. I don't know, something like that. Like I like big blocks too. They're pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard not to look at what
Wanna
works
go with
really
that.
well
Yeah.
and say, oh, well, that works really well. Why would I not? I don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
I didn't reinvent the wheel on the 2JZ. Like that combo is what Alpha tunes every day.
Yeah.
And Induction builds one every day.
Mm-hmm. What is, I know Jim is a Mustang and so is Brett.
Mm-hmm.
But is it the same or is it a little bit different?
Same Mustang.
Oh, okay. I guess
S197.
it just looks like Brett's looks a lot different, I guess, and
Yeah.
from my eye.
It sits a lot different for
yeah,
sure.
okay. So I didn't know if it was like a different like
No,
thing.
they're
okay,
same
so
deal.
that's what you would do.
Probably.
Cool. Okay. All right, now we're gonna get into some deeper questions.
I'm scared.
What would you go back and tell your college self?
I mean, I would definitely tell my college self to not buy dumb shit. Like, be smarter with like small amounts.
Yeah.
And like put those away. Because like I used to do dumb shit all the time, and I had this conversation with a buddy the other day. They're like, "Well, what would you tell him not to buy?" And I'm like, that's the problem. I don't even know specifically. I just know I've bought a lot of dumb shit that I didn't need in my life.
Yeah.
And the fact that I can't tell you what exactly is proof
Right,
of
that
how
there's
dumb
just
it is.
so much like shit.
Yeah, like just be smarter. Buy freaking gold and Bitcoin instead.
Okay, there you go. What's a hard moment in your life that made you grow?
It was a hard moment in my life that made me grow. I mean, obviously the birth of CJ was a difficult moment. The pregnancy of CJ was like wild. You know, there's so much growth there because you have to become like from just like a husband and a partner to like a caretaker of your family. You know, your wife when she's pregnant, and then your child who is, God willing, going to join the world
Yeah.
shortly after a pregnancy.
That's interesting. I didn't even like kind of think. I mean, it's definitely hard, like, but it's also such like a happy time in life that I like. I guess I wouldn't think about it that way, but it's definitely hard
Yeah.
as well.
I would say probably also when I moved to Florida, but the problem when like I moved to Florida was I was a dumb 19-year-old kid. So I was too smart for growth or anything like that. As 19-year-old boys are, they're too intelligent to
Yeah.
think that they're learning anything
Yeah.
or need to.
Well, I guess that's kind of going off the next question. What's one thing you would tell someone who's in their 20s?
I would tell them, like, you don't know everything, and there's so much to learn. Not to say somebody's not smart, but
Like, take it all in. Like, don't think that you
not
know
even take
everything,
it all
yeah, or-
in. Like, seek the knowledge, seek wisdom, seek the, like, a mentor in a way, even if it's from a book or from a YouTube series or something like that. Seek that kind of thing, because when you have a glass that you think is filled with water, you can't fill it anymore. But if you think the glass is empty, you can fill it more. And that would be one of my earlier takeaways. And I don't think I was like anti-learning or knowledge. I think I was actually very like persistent on trying to learn things
Learn more.
and read. And I've always watched a lot of documentaries, but I still think I didn't do a good enough job educating myself at the time, because nobody's going to educate you for you.
Yeah.
Only you
have
can.
to do it.
School's not going to do it. Like, it's just on you.
Yeah. Good answer. What's one thing you want to improve in your 30s?
I would definitely like to improve my financial literacy and my financial like
managing.
yeah,
finances
I need
sort
to
of
be
thing,
better
right?
at that.
Yeah.
And like very gung-ho about everything being well documented and everything, like I'm just bad about that.
Yeah, we both are. We're not the
Yeah.
greatest at that. Like keeping track of things and like
Spreadsheets and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Like really, really buckle down
I like that.
on that.
Yeah.
Because if you can't manage that, you can't manage anything.
yeah, I like that. We can work on that together. Okay, yesterday we celebrated our 3-year wedding anniversary. So 3 years of being married. What advice would you give to a newly married couple?
What advice would you give to a newly married couple? That's a tough one.
Like being a husband, I guess.
I would definitely say have babies.
Yeah,
Because what's the point of getting married if you're not gonna?
Babies make everything better. for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. I would say have plenty of babies. Don't like do things together. Like do things together. Like I see a lot of people that are not with their spouse, like at the racetrack or doing something or like out just spend like
Yeah, I was actually looking back on stuff like before we had CJ, just like reminiscing on stuff, and I'm like, we did do a lot together. Like
Yeah.
we did a lot, like even like just things on the weekend of like we'd go doing something, or we did like travel together to races, and I'd always come to the racetrack with you, and you would come like do photos with me. Like we did do a lot together.
be involved in each other's hobbies.
Yes, I like that a lot.
If he likes to fish, like
Do it with
go
him.
fishing with him.
Yeah.
I know it sucks, but like I know he's probably not good at fishing.
Oh my god, it was
But like
funny.
car meets and things like that, like
Yeah.
cars and coffee, like you go experience those things together.
Yeah. That is so funny. The fishing. I know it's not fun.
I know
but
it
do
sucks.
it.
You picked him.
Yeah, I like that a lot, to like be involved in each other's hobbies and like do things together like that. Because honestly, when you have kids, it changes a lot. Cooper and like now every time Cooper goes to like for a race at the drag strip, like I'm not really there. It's
Yeah.
a little
Happens.
sad, and I've cried about it for sure. I mean, I go as much as I can with CJ, but he has his routine, and like I know it's temporary, and like once he's older, I'll be able to like have him out there for longer, but like, it is a big change from like I could just leave and go to the track all day with you, and now it's like no, it doesn't work like that. So, yeah, I like that. Do you feel like you've changed at all since becoming a husband and a father? Like, or even just from like husband to father, or just from like college Cooper to like husband Cooper? I don't know.
I wouldn't really say I feel like I have, because I've always been kind of a more emotionally and psychologically mature person, I would say, where I've never, like, I've always kind of been more of the caretaker mindset and more of like the,
Yeah,
I was always called like the Boy Scout
Yeah.
as the joke.
No, I mean literally
like,
that's
prepared with things and
that's
kind of
probably
that.
one of the things that like made me fall in love with you, is like how you just always like took care of me. Like just in little ways, even in like high school and college, and like, picking me up from places, or like making me food. Like you've just always done that. So I think that's easily carried over for you
Yeah,
into
exactly.
like being a dad.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So I guess maybe you haven't changed that much.
Not a whole lot.
No,
I mean,
you
of course
have,
there's
but-
of course there's going to be subtle change, but
Yeah.
I didn't need to do like a 180 of my life, like, oh, he was a party animal before and now he's
Yeah,
like,
no.
because I don't drink, I don't smoke, like I never had to like worry about thinking about those things.
Yeah. I feel like you have become more like emotionally mature. Like I think when we were younger, like with like it was hard for you to like understand my anxiety and like certain things, but now like through like being married and like
Do I understand
You-
it or do I just accept it?
No, I think you do somewhat understand where I'm coming from. Like, I've had to explain it to you a lot, and now it's like you get it a little bit, and you know, like, kind of how to help me, and like, like, I feel like you know what I need and like can help me. Like, I feel like you've changed a lot in that way. Like, even though you've always taken care of me, it's just like more of an understanding of like what I need and stuff.
That's
my point of view. I wrote this down because or maybe I should, or I'll ask it now. I wrote this down because you said you actually asked Sam the question of what has been a moment in your life where you felt most successful.
When I felt most successful.
Right? Isn't that what you asked Mr. Sam?
Yeah. Yeah, I asked basically when in your life did you feel successful?
Yeah. Okay.
Like when did you feel like you broke through a barrier of like success?
Where you're like, okay,
And I don't think I've ever felt like I broke through a barrier where I'm like, oh, I've gained success now. Mm-hmm. I've definitely felt like wins and fails, and I've definitely felt more successful at times and less successful at times. But I think it's like looking at like a stock graphic. Does like
yeah.
Like sometimes
I guess
like,
I don't know. Is there any
you just
like
hope you trend
monumental moment where you're like, oh, I'm doing something good. Like I'm doing something that I'm.
I mean, there's
excited
been great things that have happened. You know, when we raised $20,000 to give to people for spaghetti was huge. When we
need to do something like that again.
You know, I got my 100,000 subscriber play button. That was special to me. Having, you know, millions of views on the podcast is very special to me and feels successful. But again, it's a fleeting thing. Like it can
always change, go up and down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have several moments.
Yeah.
What is the most memorable race you've been in? Is there one that comes to mind that's like, honestly, you know, or you answer and then I'll answer.
My most memorable race, I mean, it may have been the finals of TX2K.
That's what I'd say.
That one year with the love truck next to me.
Yep.
That was a pretty memorable race. It may have been, oh man, all these I've lost in the finals, all the ones. But there was a very memorable race in Orlando one year where I went up there by myself. You didn't come. I met up with James and Nate, and they were racing. And I made it to the finals, and this car that like didn't really fit the class, it kind of like skirted some of the rules. It felt like really just waxed the floor with me. But I made it to the finals, and it was a tough fight to the finals. I got a nice trophy out of it, but that was very memorable because I was at the top end of the track, and my car was like, my trailer was all the way at the top end of the track. The track was like 80% empty at this point, and I was just dead alone. No one else was there. No one pulled me into the beams. No one was there to celebrate the trophy. No one was there to come collect the cash. It was
Cooper's memorable.
I mean, it's memorable because like I was sitting there like
maybe you had the feeling of like I did this all by myself.
Well, it was like midnight and it was a long weekend.
Day, yeah.
And I was just laying on the trailer about to load up, and I was just like, wow, that's crazy. Like I'm funny. Just like, and if anybody's ever been to the top end of Orlando, like it's pitch black, no one around, and it's just like you're sitting there alone with your trophy, and it's I'm not like sad about it. It's just very like, it was just a very like memorable thing because I remember the feeling of just there was nobody on the starting line watching my pass. Like there was no.
That's so funny. It's like the least memorable moment. Like to anyone looking on the outside would be like, really?
But that's like, why it's also memorable because nobody else remembers it. This is just my memory.
Yeah.
I wasn't at the top end with someone.
Is there a video anywhere? Like, no.
Just there's a selfie of me holding the trophy at the starting line after I went to collect the money. Aww. And that was it.
And you came in second?
I came in second place, yeah.
Oh my
at the World Street Nationals in the Heavy Street.
That's funny. That's awesome.
No, it's a very memorable deal.
Yeah. What's some advice you'd give to a first-time parent?
Don't over prepare. I know that sounds weird, but like,
I feel like that's a jab at me.
no, it's not a jab at you. I
I'm
think you would
such an
agree with that. I think there's a
I don't.
level
Actually,
of prep.
I feel like I don't, because I feel like I've said this where I literally feel like when you're in that newborn phase, like if you use something for one time and it saves you like 15 minutes of not crying or entertaining, or it just helps you in some way, I feel like it's worth it that we had it.
Maybe I'm fairly cheap, so I don't think exactly that way.
Yeah, but like
if it's like 15 minutes
or like
sure,
hand me down,
okay, but like if it's like a $60 item to save you 15 minutes of crying, hopefully, I think I'll just handle the 15 minutes. I'll just endure.
I don't know. I'm like, I'd rather have things that I feel like we really may need, and if I use them once or twice, 3 times, I'm happy I had it. That's kind of like how I feel.
Yeah.
But I also hear you out. Like you really
You're gonna buy more than you need.
You need diapers, food, and some clothes for them, and they'll be fine.
Absolutely, you're gonna get more than you need.
Especially, yeah. So I could see don't crazy over prepare. But anything else?
No, I think.
Advice to a first-time parent?
Oh, advice to a first-time parent. I mean, yeah, I would say don't over-prepare, especially if you live in the suburbs or like a city where you can get everything at like either the same day Amazon or like 5 minutes down the street.
Right.
You can get it. Like, don't go crazy. If it's readily available, don't go crazy.
Yeah. What do you think has been the hardest part of having a child?
I would say the schedule is just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's definitely
the wake ups, the nap time, and wake up, and then trying to get them down for a nap, and then food, and
because you go anywhere and you're like, you start the timer and you're like, okay,
yeah,
like either he's gonna be sleeping in the car, like you gotta make sure you have food bottles for him,
yeah,
because like I could go out for the day and be like, oh, I'll figure it out,
yeah,
but like with him, you just can't.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and like especially as he's getting older, it's been like, okay, now we have to bring snacks with us. Okay, now we got to remember the water. Now we're getting to a point where like we need to bring shoes for him because he loves like standing and us like holding him and him walking. So when we go to places, I'm like, I need to put shoes on him. And it's just like, there's always something more that like you need to bring and prepare for and like schedule around and plan. Like the scheduling and planning is definitely like a lot.
Yeah.
What has been your favorite part about being a dad?
I mean, there's a lot of fulfillment. I would say the child is my favorite part of being the dad. I mean, it's very enjoyable to spend time with him.
Yeah.
Like I very much enjoy
Just
me and
out.
CJ just hanging out and playing or going on a walk or holding him and him looking at everything that he's never seen before.
Yeah.
Like even like the other day, like we were walking around outside and he's just sitting there looking at the chickens or like I'll like hold him up to a tree so he can like feel the bark. Because this is new experiences for him, so I try to like push him to every thing that he's maybe never experienced. Like this is tree bark, this is a leaf. Like you got to feel these things and like
I'm crying by the way. I put this in the thumbnail. Maybe it'll do better. They always say like seeing your kids like see things, watching your kids see things through their eyes is like the coolest thing ever. Like you're saying, like. He's seeing tree bark or like he's just seeing something new for the first time or like going somewhere new for the first time. And to us, it's so just like normal stuff, but they're seeing it the first time. And it's like, it's the most insane feeling to like experience that with them. It's like,
yeah, like he'll sit and watch cars for hours.
He loves watching the cars go down the street.
If you go by, like go sit at the end of the driveway, he'll just watch cars all day. Yesterday, one was broken. This Kia went by and it was like rod knocking or something, and I can swear he heard there was something wrong because he was like really looking like he followed it way farther than he normally follows a car and like was looking at it like with like a different face. Because
usually it's just like zoom, and then it's like quiet. But if it was like making noise, like he's like.
But he had he had a different face. Like he knew it was making like a noise that it shouldn't have been making. Oh. Which I thought was very funny.
That is funny. I'm grateful you're such like a present and like attentive dad with him, and like you're so helpful and you do a lot.
Well, thank you.
And you're great with him.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, last thing. I feel like it's been 30 because we had some other questions in there too.
Fine.
But
I would say we've...
what's one thing you hope to achieve in this next decade of your life in your 30s? Any goals, aspirations, ideas, anything you want to do?
I would hope to use the next 10 years to build the life that CJ and you deserve.
Oh.
That would be my goal. You know, like we've spent the last 10 years building and working towards like this social media deal that I have a pretty decent grasp on some days and completely not other days. But I think there's hopefully now potential to kind of in my 30s grow all of it across the board, you know?
Yeah.
Not just social media, but just like
You will.
everything. You know, that would be my hope is to, because I mean, frick, when I'm 40, CJ is going to be 10 years old.
You know, is that crazy? Oh. I like that answer.
Yeah, good.
All right, guys, that's it. I hope you enjoyed that. That was a little bit of a different episode with me in charge.
Yeah, that was fun. I had a good time. Thank you for providing that insight to me. It felt weird being on this side of the table.
Yes, happy birthday. I love you.
Thank you so much. Love you too.
You're 30 today, and we're going to go figure out what we're going to do the rest of the day because Cooper won't tell me what
I
he
hate
wants.
birthdays. I have to work. I have things I got to do.
I know.
I can't just be like, oh, I don't know. Let me go to Six Flags. I don't know where there's a Six Flags.
All right, well, let's get back to CJ. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching and supporting Cooper and all the things that he does. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time.
What do I click?
Hit that red button.
The record?
No, the big square red button.
Here?
Yeah.
Oh, that's confusing. How did you do?
You did great. That was awesome. Yeah. Oh, Mr. Sam. Mr. Sam's calling. You had great questions. Hello, Mr. Sam.